You don't forget names or misplace your keys just because you're aging. You forget because something subtle may be interfering with how your brain works, and sometimes the very supplements you take for support might be the source of that disruption. Not because they're inherently dangerous, but because the way your body processes them changes after 50. And what once helped you stay alert or sleep better might now be quietly dulling your cognition without you realizing it. And the first of these is a supplement, so common you likely keep it by your bedside. Diphenhydramine, often found in over-the-counter sleep aids and allergy medications, the kind labeled PM or nighttime. And while it might help you rest, it's been studied for its effects on memory-related neurotransmitters, particularly acetylcholine. And those studies suggest long-term use, especially when consistent, may impact how well you remember, process, and focus, especially in older adults. And if you've been waking up groggy or struggling with mental clarity even hours after taking it, it may be less about sleep and more about a chemical leftover, disrupting your brain's natural rhythm. And you don't need to panic, but you do need to notice, because no one tells you the line between rest and residue is thin. And that one small tablet taken regularly might be creating more mental fatigue than it solves. And the second supplement, often overlooked, is calcium specifically. Calcium carbonate, a compound commonly included in bone health formulas that's easy to find and often taken without question. But calcium doesn't work alone. And in the absence of magnesium and vitamin K2, which help regulate its absorption and placement, it can build up in soft tissues and vessels where it doesn't belong, potentially impacting circulation, which plays a quiet but critical role in brain function. And if blood flow is less than optimal, your brain may not be receiving the oxygen and nutrients it needs to work efficiently, which over time could lead to cognitive sluggishness that feels like aging but isn't just aging. It's imbalance. And you might not feel it in your bones, but you'll feel it in your focus, in your ability to complete thoughts, in your confidence to speak clearly without grasping for words. And the third supplement is ginkgo biloba, an herb long marketed as a memory enhancer, a brain booster, a natural solution for mental fog, but the evidence remains inconsistent. And in some cases, it may interact with medications like blood thinners or contribute to side effects such as dizziness or headaches, especially in those over 60. And the danger here is less about toxicity and more about trust. You think it's helping you take it daily, and meanwhile the true causes of your forgetfulness go unaddressed, hidden behind a promise that may not be keeping pace with your needs. And this isn't about blame. It's about awareness, because your memory deserves more than a hopeful routine. It deserves reflection, and if you've noticed small lapses becoming more frequent or mental fog settling in when you used to feel sharp, now is the time to ask yourself, what am I taking every day that may no longer serve me? Because memory loss rarely announces itself with certainty. It begins with pauses, with forgotten appointments, with that strange feeling that you're grasping for a name that used to come so easily, and you chalk it up to stress or age or distraction. But deep inside, something doesn't feel right. And what you may not realize is that your supplement routine, once helpful, may have slowly become outdated, mismatched with what your brain actually needs now. And while diphenhydramine may have once helped you sleep through the night, your brain's natural sleep architecture, its cycles of restoration and neural cleaning, can be disrupted by chemical sedation that mimics rest but skips the depth your brain needs to consolidate memory and process thought. And night after night, that shallow rhythm can compound into daytime confusion and fog. You struggle to name, and calcium carbonate, which you likely started for bone health, may be making things harder if your system isn't absorbing it well anymore, especially if you're not pairing it with nutrients that tell your body where to put it. And instead of strengthening your frame, it may be confusing your system, leading to stiffness, circulation issues, and internal tension. you can't trace to any clear cause. And that tension doesn't always show up in your back or joints. It can live in your thinking, in how fast you retrieve words, in how easily you pivot between tasks, in how long it takes to remember why you walked into a room. And ginkgo, for all its claims and hopeful branding, may not offer the clear cognitive revival you've been hoping for, because what your brain really needs isn't stimulation. It's support, consistent nourishment, deep rest, oxygenation, and clarity from the inside out. And taking something every day that promises focus but delivers uncertainty can quietly become a false anchor, one that makes you delay more foundational changes. Your hydration, your movement, your food, your social connection, your mental engagement, your nutrient balance. And these aren't exciting things to sell in a bottle, but they are the real scaffolding of brain health. And when you start shifting your attention away from products that offer shortcuts and toward habits that build resilience, something changes, not overnight, not dramatically, but gradually, as the fog begins to thin and you hear yourself thinking more clearly, feeling more steady, showing up with more ease in conversations that once felt draining. And this is what most people miss, that removing the wrong inputs can be more powerful than adding the right ones. And that clarity doesn't always come from doing more. It can come from doing less, more wisely. And that includes pausing the things you've been swallowing for years without question, holding each one in your hand and asking, is this helping me now? Or am I still taking it because I once thought it would? Because you are not the same body you were 10 years ago, and your brain is not the same system. It once was. Either it's wiser, more sensitive, and more reactive to what you feed it, and what once passed through your system without issue might now linger, build up, or block pathways your thoughts rely on to move freely. And this is what so many people overlook, that memory isn't just a biological function, it's a system of signals. And every signal depends on flow. Flow of blood flow, of neurotransmitters, flow of nutrients, flow of rest. And when even one supplement begins to interfere with that rhythm, the result isn't obvious failure. It's subtle hesitation, a slowing. You can't explain a tiredness in your clarity that no nap can fix. And you may have blamed age or stress or sleep, but when you step back, you might begin to see patterns, that the fog deepened when you started using that nighttime aid every evening, or that the confusion grew thicker once you added that extra calcium pill, or that ginkgo didn't make things sharper. It just gave you hope that maybe the sharpness would return if you stayed patient. And you've been patient, you've followed instructions, you've listened to advice from articles, videos, bottles, but your body doesn't respond to marketing. It responds to alignment, to balance. And the longer you give it what doesn't match your current needs, the more energy it has to use, compensating, adapting, and buffering what could have been simplicity. And in those daily efforts, your body trying to make peace with what you give, it's some part of your mental clarity gets left behind. Not because it's failing, but because it's overtasked, and you can feel it now. That sense that something's off, that you're more reactive, more forgetful, more mentally distant than you'd like to admit. And that's not shameful, it's human, but it's also a signal. And the most powerful shift you can make isn't to add another supplement. It's to question the ones you've kept for too long. The ones that no longer fit the version of you that's still evolving, still becoming, still capable of clarity if given the chance. And when you do that, when you take those 3 supplements and set them aside for a time and watch how your body responds, you may notice something. Not even the best formula can sell the quiet return of your own rhythm, the ease of finding your thoughts again, the feeling of not having to reach so far for the words you once held close. And it starts not with a breakthrough product, but with the courage to subtract. And maybe what's been missing isn't another health tip, but the decision to take your health back from habit. Because habits form quietly, often with good intentions, a suggestion from a friend, A label that sounded right a moment, where you reached for something you hoped would help. And over time, that reach became routine. And now you're taking something that no longer serves you. Maybe even burdens you, but it's familiar, so you keep going, not because it's helping, but because it's easier than questioning. And now here you are, wondering why your memory isn't as crisp, why your thoughts feel slower, why your energy dips at strange times, and what if part of the answer isn't a new addition, but a removal, a clearing out of the things that no longer fit your life, your chemistry, your clarity. And yes, that can feel uncomfortable because it asks you to revisit what you thought was settled, to challenge the silent authority of a daily habit. But that's where transformation lives. Not in comfort, but in reflection. And this is your invitation to reflect, to pause at the medicine cabinet, and ask not just what something is supposed to do, but what it's actually doing now in this body at this age with this history. And if you've been taking diphenhydramine nightly and noticing more mental fog, or relying on calcium carbonate without the co-nutrients that make it work, or trusting ginkgo to improve your memory without noticing any real benefit, you don't have to stay in that pattern. You can step back, consult your doctor, and give your brain a chance to operate without interference, to clear space to breathe. Because the brain is not just a machine, it's a garden. And what you stop planting matters just as much as what you feed it. And when you stop giving it confusion disguised as support, it begins to clear the soil. And that clarity becomes strength. Not overnight, but through consistency, through the quiet decision to honor your current needs, not just your old assumptions. And the beauty of that choice is that it doesn't require perfection. Just honesty about how you feel about what's working and what isn't, and the courage to change course without shame. Because changing direction isn't failure, it's growth. And if your memory has been asking for help, not with dramatic loss, but with small whispers, with the subtle feeling that something's fading, you now have one powerful way to answer: by subtracting what doesn't belong and allowing what's still strong inside you to come forward again, without noise, without guessing, without interference. And with that return, your memory may not just survive, it may surprise you, because your clarity was never gone, just hidden, waiting for a little more space to breathe.